month I play my TBR game, and it gives me a plethora of reads that I need to read in any given month. And I had a question. How much of Timmy's TBR could I tackle in 24 hours? So today we are going to find out just that as I tackle Timmy's TBR and start with Tress of the Emerald Sea.
Am I liking a boat book? I might be, honestly. I am 100 pages, 25% into Tress of the Emerald Sea. And for most of that 100 pages, I've been having a really fun time. So I'm sure you know what this is about, but I will do a brief synopsis just so we kind of know what I'm talking about. So anyway, in this book, we follow Tress. Tress grows up on this island, which is surrounded by a sea that is made of poisonous spores. She falls in love with the Duke's son, Charlie, and he loves her as well. They're about 17 years old. But the Duke does not want his son to be associated with Tress because he sees her as beneath him. So he takes his son on an adventure on this sea of spores to find a wife. During that adventure, Charlie gets captive by a sorceress. His father abandons him, finds a new heir, which is like a cousin or a nephew. Anyway, finds a new heir to marry off and lets Charlie basically fend for himself with this sorceress. So Tress has to leave her little island to save the man that she loves. And we see her go off, get on a boat, smuggle herself onto a boat to go save Charlie. The things I'm liking about this book, let's start there. The things I'm liking, I love Tress. I absolutely adore her. I really relate to her in a lot of ways. The way we constantly talk about how she is constantly thinking. When she's doing a task, her mind is running. That is very relatable for me. We also see Tress wanting to do things, but kind of being hesitant to ask for what she needs because she wants to put other people first, maybe even to the detriment of what she needs. And we see other people volunteering to help her and being like, no, we are so willing to help you. Ask if you need help. And I'm a person who slightly does that as well. So there's a lot of reasons that I can relate to Tress. Tress, when she gets on the first ship, she meets a little sidekick. And if you have been around at all, you know, I love a cute side character. In this case, it is a rat, Huck, who is a talking rat, and I do adore Huck, honestly. Adore Tress and Huck together. It is a great team of two characters that I can just sink into. And as a character-focused reader, I am trying to just kind of overlook the fact that we're spending a lot of time on a boat. One thing that I really enjoyed seeing in the first 100 pages of this book was some assistive technology representation. As a person whose child has used assistive technology to communicate with the world for some time, for quite a long time, and I don't talk about that often, but it was something that we used for a very, very long time as a tool to help him. Seeing a character who cannot communicate in the traditional sense using assistive technology in this book, I was so excited to see that representation because I do feel like that's something maybe not a lot of people have come in contact with and something that I have. And I have seen the benefits of that. So seeing it in this book, and I love that Brandon Sanderson put that representation in this book. So there are a lot of things in this book that I am absolutely 100% adoring reading about. The humor, I'm enjoying the humor. There's so much I'm liking. I just don't like that we're on a boat. But I will say 99% of the time, I haven't been bothered by the fact that we're on a boat. We did have one cannon scene, like a cannon fight, pretty early on when Tress gets onto her first boat. And I was like, I'm bored. I'm checked out. I don't care about this kind of stuff. This is part of the reason I don't like boat books, is that kind of like boat fighting scenes I just check out for. So there was a bit of that as I was reading it for just a, handful of pages. But within that, we got a lot of interesting information about the spore sea and how the spores work, which I think did help me remain somewhat interested because that is so different and it's like world building that I can like sink my teeth into and kind of just ignore the fact that we're on a boat. So I think that's what I'm going to do with this story is I'm just going to focus on the things that I'm absolutely adoring, which is, again, probably 95 to 98% of the book, and just ignore the fact that we are on boats and keep enjoying it, because I am really enjoying this book. I think I went into this with very low expectations because I did expect not to like this book. So I am pleasantly pleased. So with 17 hours and 17 minutes, how like serendipitous is that number or that time left on the timer? I have finished Tress of the Emerald Sea, and I'm going to give this 4 stars. I really had a fun time with this book, a lot more fun than I expected going into this, with it being a boat book. I do think a lot of the descriptions about being on the boat didn't bother me near as much as it normally would, because it was paired with information about this spores sea that they are on and the different type of spores seas. There's, I think, 7. We don't see all 7 in this book, but we do come in contact with many different spores, and each spore reacts differently to different things like water, people, boats being in it, etc., etc., etc. And we see Tress and the crew and just the book telling us how those spores interact. So in this, I did mention the spore sea, but I didn't mention what it is. There isn't water. The sea is not a water in which you are used to. It is made of spores, and spores can explode. They can stop moving, so boats get stuck in the water. And there's so much layers to the spore sea that magic and that world building brought a level to the descriptions of being on this boat that made it work for me. Normally I check out in a boat book because the descriptions of sea life and boat faring just are not interesting to me. And in this case, it really, really worked. And the characters and the humor really, really worked for me. There are also many times where we had such an interesting quote or look at a little life lesson, which again is something that if you've been around, you will know that I will always catch. I kind of wanted to annotate this, which means I need to get a physical copy, because obviously this is from my library. I didn't want to buy it because I assumed I wasn't going to like it, but I have been corrected. I really appreciated Tress as a character. I really appreciated the characters around her. And actually, the little twist at the end, I should have seen coming. Probably I should have seen it. I didn't. When it was revealed to me, I was like, oh, okay, that's what's happening. Great. Okay, I like it. And I liked seeing Tress coming into her own. As she traveled the world, she learned about herself, and she grew into the person that she was meant to be. And we see how that affects her relationship with Charlie once she finds him, and also how we can see love stories grow together. And I really enjoyed this. I liked seeing little Easter eggs to the Cosmere books I've already read, because I am doing Brandon Sanderson's list of how to read them in what order. So when I saw Sazed being mentioned, which is from Mistborn, I got quite excited just to see the mention. I love a little Easter egg in a book, and you definitely get that with these Cosmere books, even though this is technically a standalone within the Cosmere. Anyway, it was very successful. Way more successful than I thought it would be by a long shot. But it is time to move on to the next book on Timmy's TBR that I am going to attempt to read in 24 hours. And the one that is going to take most of this 24 hours, which is why I'm going to do it next. This one we had to do first because of Libby constraints. This next one we're going to do because she's chunky. It's very, very long. It's a 24-hour audio. Now, obviously, I'm listening at a sped up speed, so it is doable to get done in the time allotted. But how long this will take is undetermined a little bit, and I can't continue on to the other books not knowing how much time I will have left on the timer once this one's done. So I need to do this one next. Plus, this one is a mandatory read for me this month because it is for my Patreon book club. With Leandra, we're doing a joint book club this month. Very first time doing it. Murder Amongst the Fairies. And I need to read this book. I need to read it so I can participate in the live show. I got it tucked way back here, and she's chunky and she's in charge. And it is The Raven Scholar. This is by Antonia Hodgson, And I have heard amazing, amazing, amazing reviews of this book. Absolutely fantastic reviews. This is a mystery fantasy blend. I do believe there might even be some dark academia elements, all things that definitely make it seem like something that I will highly enjoy. For Tackling Timmies, this was on the prompt for over 500 pages. It is over 600 pages, but it's very floppy. It has a beautiful flop. And I do think I'm really going to enjoy this. After we picked this, I heard so many fantastic reviews on TikTok from other subscribers, from some of my patrons who found out this was going to be our book club pick, and they were like, this is my best book of the year. Like, I can't wait to read this. Well, not read this, but have you all read this and then participate in the discussion, because they'd already obviously read it. But I need to read this so that I can be on the live show. So that's what we're going to do next. So there are 8 parts to The Raven Scholar, and I have read the first 2, and I was waiting to get to like the entire synopsis before I came and chatted with you early thoughts. But I still haven't seen some of the things in the synopsis, and I'm 150 pages into this book, and I felt like I really should come give you some idea of my thoughts before I read like half of this book and said nothing to you. But I haven't hit the mystery that is hinted at in the synopsis of this book yet. It is taking a while to really get into the story. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, because this story is fairly complex and there are a lot of elements. So there's a lot of things that we need to know, I think, before we get to like the mystery of the story to have the context. But it does take a while, and I needed to come talk to you a little bit about this. So I have read 2 parts of this book, and the parts are starkly different. They are very different in vibes. The first part of this book almost felt like a prologue, where it was context of an event, a pretty major event in the society and the government of this world that gives context, I'm assuming, to like what is to come in this trials fantasy mystery book. So this is a genre blend, and I've seen a lot of the fantasy. Again, we really haven't gotten to the mystery yet, where there is a murder. I know there's going to be a murder. It's in the synopsis, but I have yet to see that. So in this world, we have like 8 factions, and they are all represented by animals, the raven being one of them. They seem to be like a selection of scholars. And every 24 years, they have trials to come up with a new emperor. The emperor can only rule for 24 years, and each one of these factions sends someone to compete in these trials to become the emperor. That is where I'm at right now. I just met all 7 of the contenders. The dragon, which is one of the factions, never sends someone to compete in the trials. They seem to be the only ones that actually have magic, and they kind of like rule themselves, and everyone is okay to allow the dragons to rule themselves, because realistically, if they came in with their magic, they could just like conquer everybody and take over this entire society. So there is a lot of politics in here. We're meeting the current emperor. He seems to be a bit unhinged, honestly. Sometimes he like rules with an iron hand. Sometimes he's like laughy and jokey, and you never really know what side of that emperor you're gonna get. And it does create a feeling of like a volatile ruler. So I can't wait to get to know more about the different like contenders and who could potentially be the emperor as we go into the trials. I think part 3 is the start of the trials. Part 2 was like here are your contenders. Here they are, who they are, what faction they're for, why they're here. The main character we're following, though, is not one of the contenders. It's Nima, and she is the high scholar in the Ravens. And I think she's going to be kind of the one on the outside of the trials, kind of pulling back the curtain and letting us know what's going on. Also, it does say in the synopsis that she's the one who investigates the murder once it comes. Again, I haven't seen that yet. But there's a lot of things I'm interested about this book. Like, there are some things that are really intriguing me. I will say there were a couple of moments where I was a little bit checked out in the second part of this book. I really liked the first part, and I kind of wish we would have like kept with the vibes of the first part because again, they are very, very different. So it took me a second to really settle into part 2 because I was missing what we were doing with part 1. But I feel like I have. So we're going to see how part 3 plays out for me now that I've kind of like come to terms with like, this is the actual story that we're following. That was more contextual. And we'll see how these two stories, I mean, I can see how they do have some impact on each other, but I'm sure they have more as we read the book because why would you give me all that context if they don't? I really do like the narration style in this book. It has a really interesting narrator. I don't want to say who the narrator is because I think it is really fascinating. And I think there's a moment where the book kind of shows you who the narrator is. And I wouldn't want to ruin that for someone coming into the book. It's a really fun like twist on a narrator. And that is really what is special in this book for me at this time. This has footnotes too, which is definitely something I want to point out because I know sometimes for like readathons, people are looking for books with footnotes. This one has footnotes, not a ton. I've maybe seen like 11 or 12 in 150 pages, but they are there if you ever need a book with footnotes. And again, I kind of have mixed feelings on this, but I'm not like hating it or anything. There are times where I'm actually very, very invested, and then there's times where I'm not, but this is a big book. So I might like get to know the characters more, fall in love more with the characters more, and have more moments where I am invested. At this point, I still think we're like introing the story. Again, I haven't seen everything in the synopsis, so it's still really too early, even though I've read 150 pages, to really know my full thoughts on this book at this time, which is really interesting, actually. Like, I feel like in most books by now, I have a really firm feeling of the characters, their motivations, what's going on. And in this book, we're getting just such little tidbits and really focusing on more of the world building at the beginning of this book that I haven't really gotten that yet. We also have the mention of a cute side character in Pink Pink, which is Nima's chameleon. Again, Nima is the high scholar, the person who I think will become our detective investigator, and she has a chameleon named Pink Pink. And I have barely seen Pink Pink, not a big part of this story, but I always will call out when I find a cute side character, a cute side creature, because I just love them every single time. So those are kind of my early thoughts on the Raven Scholar. I feel like I haven't told you much, but like also I've mentioned a lot of different aspects. That's just kind of how this book is, honestly. That's just the vibes of this book. I'm gonna go make a coffee because it is somewhat early in the morning for me. I got up early and I read part 2 quite quickly this morning. So I am going to grab a cup of coffee and continue to read The Raven Scholar and see how far I get today. Next day, and I have made it to the end of part 4, which is 200 pages more than the last time I spoke to you. So I definitely have seen a lot more, and I have finally gotten to the murder in this book and the murder mystery part of The Raven Scholar. It's really interesting to me, and I can't think of another book in which I have felt this way about, where each part is vastly different in what we're covering and the vibes. It is completely different. So from each part, I feel like I have different feelings on the book every time I pick it up, because there are parts of this book that I am really bought into, that I'm really enjoying. And then there are a lot of parts of this book that I do not care and that I am uninterested and I am checked out. And it really depends on what part of this story we're focusing on. Part 3 centered around the trials. And I do find the trials somewhat interesting. I'm not completely checked out of those. But because I don't really feel that connected to most of the contenders, I am a bit uninterested in the trials because of that. I don't necessarily have one that I'm like rooting for, that I want to see do well in these trials. The main character we're following is Nima, and she does not want to become the emperor. And I am intrigued in Nima's story, But that is kind of separate from the trials in some sense, because she is not wanting to be the next emperor. She is just trying to solve this murder. And she is doing a pretty good job of it. She's getting to the bottom of it. She is going into that. And in part 4, we really dive into the investigation and we discover a lot of things. Part 4 is probably my favorite part of the book. It really pulled me back in, but I'm scared to go into part 5 because it has been a little bit of a roller coaster for me in my enjoyment throughout each part. Part 4 also, like, I just wish the whole book was written like part 4. Part 4, we see a lot more of this narrator that I spoke of, and the narrator breaks the fourth wall often, and I'm really enjoying that in this book, and I think it's what is keeping me going, honestly. I would finish this book anyway because it is a book club book and I'm on the live discussion for it, so like I need to have read it to participate in the live discussion. But there are moments where I'm like, I could DNF this book, but part 4 really like brought me in, so I'm hoping that we continue with those vibes. However, I am reading this for book club and I'm kind of seeing discussions in book club that is not necessarily going to be the truth. So I'm a little bit concerned going into part 5. I'm a little bit concerned about it because I want those vibes to continue, because that was what I was the most invested in, is this murder mystery, the narrator, and those like kind of magic focused vibes. That's what I'm finding with this book, is that when we're talking about the magic system, the narrator is kind of attached to that, which is why I'm kind of like linking those, is when we're talking about the magic system and the fantastical world building, I am really enjoying that. When you're looking at the individual characters and the character work, I don't care. When you're talking about the part about the emperor, I don't care. But when you're talking about the murder mystery, I do care. So again, it's what are we talking about? I care about some things. I don't care about other things. Up and down, mixed bag. And we're just going to keep going. But I will say that since this book is so long, I think a normal book, I wouldn't think about DNFing because there's enough about it that I'm liking that I would continue reading it. But this is 650 pages. And that's a long time and a lot of effort to be investing in a book that I'm mixed about. But I am going to finish because obviously, again, this is for book club. So I think I will not talk to you until I finish. Unless something major happens. I do realize that's 300 more pages. But to be honest, I just read 200 and not that much happened. Not that much occurred. And also, as we get to the latter half of this fantasy book, there's going to be less that I can talk about plot-wise because obviously I'm not going to spoil it for those who are interested. I know a lot of people who are enjoying this book. I'm just not necessarily one of those people as of yet. But I mean, we still have almost 50% of the book to go. So I reserve the right to change my mind. So yesterday I was frantically reading The Raven Scholar in the hopes to finish it before book club sprints today, because one of my Timmy's TBR books is the book club book. So I would be like double vlogging in this video, and I was trying to avoid that, but I didn't accomplish it. I still have part 8 of this to read. This is such a chunky book, and I just couldn't pull it out. I have, I don't know, like 100 pages, not quite. Oh no, not even close. I have 70 pages left of this novel, so close, but like not quite there yet. And I need to start the next book for this vlog on sprints with Kelsey for B&K Book Club. So we're gonna move into the next one. I have 5 hours and 30 minutes left on this timer, which I think we can believe I will not be able to finish both books in that time frame, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't have a lot of faith in myself, but that's where we are with the timer, and that's where we are with the books. So today on Book Club Sprints, I am going to be starting My Friends by Frederick Bachman, which is a much anticipated release for me. I have the signed copy of this book. Let me put the other one down so I can like show you, because I love Frederick Bachman. I adore Frederick Bachman. I have recently read a Frederick Bachman, Anxious People, and I really liked that one. It wasn't my favorite in his backlist, but I'm highly anticipating this one. Like, this could be a 5-star for me, and I'm going to be reading it again today on Sprints. dry spell for 5 stars over, I might be calling this now. I made it 150 pages into My Friends, and I have adored every single minute of it. I am obsessed with this story. It really feels like we've come back to Frederick Bachman, what he wrote like when he wrote A Man Called Uwe, what he wrote like when he wrote Beartown. And both of these are books that I adore and love. And I'm so glad to be reading it in My Friends. I am like calling it, it's 5-star vibes. Like it is so 5-star. I have welled up on multiple occasions. I think by the end, I'm going to be crying. Like, I'm pretty sure. This is probably going to make me cry. I think we can pretty much call it at this point as well. In this book, we follow Louisa. And Louisa is 17 years old. She's in foster care. And she has really been alone her entire life in very, very tough situations. When she was a very little girl, her mother gave her a postcard that on the front had this famous painting on it. And she became obsessed with this painting. And it's really been something she's carried with her from home to home to home to home. And it's really a part of her life. And it did spur her into a love of art that she has kind of, worked with her entire life and learned to cultivate. She gets a chance to see this painting in real life. She has to sneak into the gallery to do it, but it is being sold and she just wants to see it in real life. And most people think it is about the sea because that is the majority of the painting. But at the back of the pier, there are 3 friends sitting on the pier, and she has always been obsessed with their story. And she starts to dive into this now that she has an even larger connection to the painting upon seeing it and getting to know the artist. She starts to dive into the artist's background, and she actually goes to his hometown, and we are seeing her dive into this and discover stuff about these friends. And during that, we are actually getting flashback scenes of the 3 friends and the artist painting this at the age of 14 years old and becoming a famous artist at such a young age, and the complexities of what was going on in their lives at the time. It's such a layered story. It's covering so many heavy, hard topics, as I have come to expect from Frederick Bachman, and I do not want to put this down. I do not want to put this down. Nothing in me wants to stop reading this book, but we are almost done this timer. We only have I just checked it, but I forget exactly, but it's under 3 hours or just around 3 hours. I think we're under 3 hours left on this timer, and I cannot finish My Friends in that time, but I can finish The Raven Scholar in that time, and I don't want to leave this vlog with no unfinished books. And I do need to finish both books. So I'm going to do the responsible thing and I'm going to put this down. I'm going to finish The Raven Scholar first thing in the morning and then dive right back into this at that time and then binge the rest of this book, because once I pick it up again, I'm not putting it back down again. Absolutely not. No, we're not doing that. So we're going to finish part 8 because that's all I have left of The Raven Scholar, and then dive into this for the remainder of the timer, which I don't know how much more I'll get because part 8 of The Raven Scholar is still, a chunky amount. It's probably going to take me over an hour to read that, an hour and a half. And we're under 3 hours on this timer, but a plan has been made. Raven Scholar, and I have finished the 24-hour timer. So I still had about an hour left of the timer when I finished The Raven Scholar, and I did finish it out with My Friends, but let's talk about this first. I did not like the ending of this book. I didn't like the ending. It felt unfinished to me. I love a good cliffhanger, don't get me wrong, and I actually do like an ambiguous ending, but this felt like we just stopped. And the story is going to continue in another book. And it doesn't feel like I should read 650 pages of a book to have it feel unfinished. Obviously, you don't want to get all the answers in the first book if it's going to be a trilogy, but there should be enough that I feel like this story is a story within the larger story in and of itself. And it didn't feel that way to me upon finishing. It just felt like there should have been more chapters at the end that weren't there. And there were so many times in this book that I was not interested in what was happening leading up to the end, and it continued right to the end. But there were so many times where things in here were excellent. I wanted it to stick with what was excellent, and I wanted it to leave out what was just uninteresting or unnecessary. And it felt like this could have been edited a lot more for me to have enjoyed it, but also take out the parts of this book that are just normal and average, what we see in every fantasy novel, and really focus on what was special, because there were so many special things. And it almost made me more mad. It made me more mad. It definitely did, that it didn't focus on that as much as I wanted it to. I wanted it to be excellent throughout, and it just didn't have the level of excellence. The up and down really just became grating as I went to the end of this book. I'm going to give it a 3-star because there was so much that I did like about it, but there was so much that I didn't, that I'm going to just put it right in the middle. And I do not anticipate me continuing on to the next book. Nothing in this makes me want to pick up the next one, which is unfortunate because there is so many special things. It's really, really unfortunate, but I just don't think that I could deal with another very chonky book that is so up and down in enjoyment for me. So 3 stars. It's unfortunate that I didn't like more. I'm really interested to see what this live show discussion is going to be with the patrons, because I do think there's a lot we can discuss. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I couldn't bring to the vlog because it would be very spoilery that we can dive into during this live show discussion. And I'm really interested to see how that kind of goes when we get to it later in the month. But after I finished that, I did dive into My Friends, which I am still absolutely, absolutely loving. I read almost another 100 pages of this. I am on page 234. So not quite 100 pages, but very, 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 very close before the timer cut me off. And since the timer is over, this vlog is over, but I will be continuing this over the next coming days and finishing it out. And at this point, if this is not a 5-star, I will fall on the floor. But also I may throw this in another video coming up. I'm not really sure where I'm going to be finishing this now that the timer's over. It's so weird to not finish a book in a vlog. I don't do that very often because normally I would finish, books unless I'm DNFing. But not finishing a 5-star, that seems weird to me, but that's what the timer is. The timer's over, the timer's done, and I didn't finish. There were also 2 books from Timmy's TBR that we absolutely didn't even touch during this timer challenge. I mean, I spent so much of the timer reading this chunky book that all the other books just didn't have a chance. But In the Shadow Glass, I didn't get to, and In My Dream House, I didn't get to. I think that's the name of that book. Both of those will have to wait. They're going to be rolled over into next month. It's totally, totally fine. I will read them in September. And both of them are either halfway through because I've already started The Shadow in the Glass last month and had to put it down for various reasons. And the other one is just a short audiobook. So it's totally fine that we didn't get to those. But you know what? Ending with what may be my first 5-star in 2 months is very exciting. And honestly, finding the first ever boat book that I have really, really enjoyed, also very surprising. This vlog has had some surprising turn of events. A boat book I liked. Finally a 5-star to break the drought of 5 stars. And honestly, I'm surprised that I didn't love this more, to be honest. I was expecting this to be a new favorite. And unfortunately, the hype book just didn't live up. But I can see, here's the thing. I can see why people are hyping this up though. I really can. Because if you were invested in the parts that I wasn't, I could see why you would love this because there is so many special things about this. There was just so many things that weren't special to me amongst the really special things. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing me tackle this 24-hour timer with Timmies and see me tackling Timmies for another month in a row. If you have made it to the end of this vlog, but have nothing to say down in the comments, leave me what should we leave? Should we leave water? Leave water for this 5-star that is going to be a 5-star. I'm calling it. I know it's not over, but it's going to be a 5-star. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.